Okay, so here we are back on chapter 10. So yesterday we talked about endangered species, threatened species, and then today we're going to move on to the rest of this chapter where it is talking about pollution and some other things that affect biodiversity. So one of the things that can affect biodiversity is pesticides, cleaning stuff that you might use in your home, drugs that get put out into the water sources, and any other chemicals that we might use in our homes or around uh, the schools or businesses. So a lot of these like long-term effects of the chemicals aren't really clear for many years. So it takes us a while to see that it's affecting us. The bald eagle was in danger because of a pesticide that farmers were using called DDT. It's now illegal to use DDT in the United States, but it is still manufactured here and it's still used around the world. So that's a problem because it's still affecting um, animals all around the world. There are areas of critical biodiversity, so an important feature of areas of the world that contain greater diversity of species is that they have a large portion of endemic species. This is a species that is native to a particular place and it's only found there. So what ecologists will do is use this number of endemic species of plants as an indicator of the biodiversity for that area because plants form the basis of ecosystems. So plants determine how biodiverse an area is. Tropical rainforests are the most biodiverse areas in the world. But the biologists estimate that over half of the world's species live in these forests, even though they only cover 7% of Earth's land surface. So a lot of these species have been identified, but there are still a lot of species that have not been identified yet. A lot of these tropical rainforest areas are being cleared for farming and for cattle because people eat a lot of meat. So they're taking this area of the rainforest and they're actually putting grazing cattle there so that they can turn this into meat for people to eat. Which is bad because the tropical rainforest being so biodiverse gives it's very beneficial for the environment. These tropical forests are also some of the few places where the native people maintain their traditional lifestyles. So it can affect an entire population of people by taking part of it out. Coral reefs and coral ecosystems. These coral reefs provide a lot of people with food. It's a big tourist attraction. A lot of people go to places in the Caribbean because of the coral reefs and the biodiversity that can be found there. Nearly 60% of Earth's coral reefs are threatened. Most of this is because of human activity, because of pollution, because they're developing the waterways, because they're overfishing the fish that are there. Also, the chemicals that can be found in a lot of sunblocks can kill the coral. So if you go to places in the Caribbean, they'll limit the type of sunblock that you can use to all natural. You can see the similar effects in swamps and marshes and shores and kelp beds. So it's not just affecting the coral, it's affecting a lot of marine areas. Islands. So we have some islands in the United States, Hawaii particularly, but these islands are colonized by a limited number of species from the mainland. So some of the species do come over from the mainland, but a lot of the species that are there because, and that's the only place that they live. So they have a limited number of species. These island species, such as this Hawaiian honeycreeper that you see in the picture, they're endangered because of invasive exotic species. When you introduce a species to an area that it doesn't belong there, these animals don't have any natural ways to protect themselves from these predators that they have never been exposed to before. So a lot of them get killed. Biodiversity hotspots. The most threatened areas of high species diversity have been labeled as biodiversity hotspots, and this includes tropical rainforests, the coastal areas, and islands. This hotspot label was developed in the 1980s to identify areas that have high numbers of endemic species that are threatened by human activities. So remember, endemic species are native to a particular area. Most of these hotspots have lost 70% of their natural vegetation. Remember, animals can't survive without plants, so you have to have a lot of plants to keep the animals alive. So here are some hotspots around the world. You can see Madagascar is an area that's right off of Africa. Also some places in South America. Here's the tropical Andes. And then some places in Central America, and here even in the United States and California. So some biodiversity in the United States. We have a lot of different ecosystems in the United States. One of them being the Everglades in Florida, the coast in California, Hawaii is very biodiverse, the Midwestern prairies. Okay, so we have a lot of high numbers of species of freshwater fish, of mussels, crayfish. So diversity is high among these groups of land plants such as pine trees and sunflowers. There's a lot of biodiversity even in the United States. For example, the California Floristic Province is a biodiversity hotspot. It houses 3,488 native plant species, so it's quite a few plant species. Of those, 2,124 are endemic, so they're only found in that California area. And 565 of them are threatened or endangered, so that's bad for the wildlife. The threats to this area are the land is being used for agriculture and housing. They're creating dams, they're overusing the water, they're mining the area for different minerals. And all of this is because human population is growing. People are moving to California. They want to live in California. So let's look at the future of biodiversity. So saving the species one at a time is going to be important. It might be impossible to save all of them, but we can save some of them. So when we know that a species is on the verge of extinction, so when we know it's threatened, they go to a lot of efforts to try to save these in the hopes that we can restore the population and build them up. And it has worked for several species so far. So there are certain methods that they use to save the species. They might keep them in captivity so they can breed them and continue to create more of the species. So captive breeding programs exist. So basically they capture them, they keep them in captivity in zoos or different areas like that, and they breed them. This was used successfully for the California condor. But it's hard to tell if once these animals are put back out into the wild that they will continue to reproduce and survive. So they do try to track them if they can. Preserving the genetic material is another way. So germplasm is hereditary material, and you can find it in the protoplasm of germ cells, and it's stored in seeds or sperm or eggs or even pure DNA. So they have these germplasm banks that can store this germplasm to use in the future for research and hopefully to recover some of the species, to make new species. Zoos, aquariums, parks, and gardens that attempt to preserve the species. They take these animals into captivity, or they separate areas that are off limits to any kind of human activity in the hopes that these plants can reproduce and make more. But a lot of times these places don't have enough resources or even the knowledge of how to preserve these species to help them. So we need to study more. We need to find ways to protect these species that are threatened. The small populations are the ones that are more vulnerable because if an infectious disease comes, or if they get some kind of genetic disorder because they're inbreeding, then that can affect the species as well. So these conservation strategies are often last resorts to save the species, but we have to do something. the most effective way to protect them is to protect their habitats. So you'll see a lot of times areas that are off limits for anything. They're protected areas because they're trying to protect species. They could still be wiped out by a natural disaster, but hopefully that doesn't happen by preserving these areas and making them off limits for hunting or any kind of chemicals that might kill them or building. So some conservation strategies. You'll see a lot of fundraisers for these conservation strategies because we have to do something to save these animals and plants that are going extinct. So these conservation efforts will protect the entire ecosystem. Instead of just trying to protect the entire or the individual species, they'll protect the entire area. Because remember, if you take out one part of that food web, you affect the entire ecosystem. So the general public is starting to understand that we have to protect Earth. We're the only ones that can do it. Obviously, it takes money. A lot of people are getting involved in raising money for these areas. Another promising strategy that they found is to promote products that have been harvested with sustainable practices. So, using the sun for energy and wind for energy and different things like that, using these sustainable practices. We do need more study to be done. We need to figure out better ways to protect these animals and plants that are threatened and endangered, because without them, the entire ecosystem will be affected. There are legal things that have been put into place to protect species. In 1973, the U.S. Congress passed the Endangered Species Act. It is designed to protect any plant or animal species that is in danger of extinction. So there's a lot of laws out there. As of 2002, 983 species of plants and animals were listed. That number obviously has changed a lot in 18 years, but that was when a lot of the efforts started to be put into place. So there are different provisions of the Endangered Species Act that you can see. Here's some U.S. laws. You can see the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service must compile a list of all endangered and threatened species. So they have to find ways to count these animals, find out who's threatened, who's endangered. And so that's requires a lot of work. And then they have to have a recovery plan. What are they going to do to protect this land for these animals and these plants to grow and to get out of being threatened and endangered? Real estate developers are always looking for ways to build up areas. So if they aren't able to build up these areas, they could lose money. But we have to determine what's important. Having food available to eat or housing more people. There's also habitat conservation plans. You'll see there's a lot of these areas in different parts of the world that have some biodiversity that's threatened and endangered. But they have to use the land to conserve these species. They can't use the land for any other purposes. And then there are international corporations that are designed to protect endangered and threatened species. And here are just some of them. You can pause it as you're going to read about them. There are trade and poaching is now legal. Elephants are hunted for their tusks, and then they are left to die. And so what people have started to do is cut the tusks off so that the elephants don't have to die. They're trying to find lots of creative ways to save the elephants. Here's biodiversity biodiversity treaty. Remember, you can pause this to read it. And then there are private efforts that are also being conducted. Because we have to balance human needs with the needs of the animals and the plants to protect them from being harmed. And that is it for chapter 10.